been completely off air.
Oh yeah,
It
you
can
can
go for
use this chair.
It can actually go for quite a while. Let you know if it's actually counted up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I was watching Beat last night, it's just like her press man is also named Mike.
Right.
Just
I'm trying to.
Well, I think it's back now.
You can buy it, it's pretty dry.
Yes.
We have to assess those. That's not a good one. Yeah. That's very biased.
We're going back Thursday?
Dry. Like 8 months.
Well, as awesome as it can be,
Yeah, yeah.
because you don't know what you're coming into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's gas
No reports of homes, actually.
Just the
I
trading
have
post
really
office.
bad
Just the
stress.
trading post.
So like,
Oh.
It's like wild.
but like I'm suffering
Yeah,
here.
houses were in that area. Like, oh, Soccer River,
Right, yeah.
Never
Yeah.
were.
Unfortunately, having compromised on this
At least one thing being in Laurel, that you have that Laurel Fire Department's actually, like, you having your own fire service is capable of protecting the community is pretty vital.
I know who you are.
Yes! Oh my god, I knew you were gonna go somewhere. I was like, damn, I know you. I was like, yeah.
You probably know her voice really
Yes,
well.
I do. I was like, I saw your name and I was
Put it
like,
like this.
you know that from
What's it
somewhere?
called?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Rachel. I did great. You're reading by you. You were fantastic, by the way. Don kept calling me and was like, you're being too nice to them. And I'm like, okay. Didn't realize I could be a jerk to the students.
Yeah, this is totally
Raising
fun.
them.
And he is fun. Well, how do you like your
Yeah.
job? Like, how do you? I'm so happy you're doing Saskatchewan. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I like did a little career shift.
Yeah.
And my background's in nursing.
So.
Me too. It's so
What?
weird. Yeah.
Oh,
No, I was a nurse in Regina. I was up at Ortho.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I did PhD
Yeah.
in BC. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then the pandemic hit and I realized this is what I want to do, so then I went back to school.
Right, right.
Just
Yeah,
communication.
a little later in
Oh,
life,
she's
but
working
this is
social,
what I
you know, I think she'll
well,
work in the,
She'll be on Alana, right?
Alana, I was like, what's
I was just thinking that. Yeah. Why
So
was
that's-
And then we had a family and I stayed home
Yeah.
with the kids. And
Never
then
had
when I was ready to go back to school,
Well,
I
it's
had to get sent to
Jenna was
Montclair.
her it's interesting because I was actually she's actually
That was it.
Yeah, it's really good.
I didn't for sure.
imaging and that stuff, so that was
Just so good.
She
writes so
considering she's the program she was
Yeah.
emphasized
Yeah.
that.
I was able to ready.
Just reset it. The cameras. You're talking about writing too.
Lisa is, she's got something special. Like, okay. Now I know.
That helps.
I mean,
So she got that, but I think the thing is that I think it was partially, she's like, yeah, as long as I can.
I was like, because they're doing good.
Yeah.
I think it always, like, the only thing is I expect to go back to Calgary for, because I mean, that's.
Well, that's all.
I thought that's what they were for. This is
Yeah,
what
they're
we were for. And the same material.
So I think that's,
You know, so many people, like, by get that flair and sometimes it's like, I'm listening to this. The first couple ones were like, I don't want to say that.
and that's
I'm
true.
not
Those
on
are
her
perfect.
breath. You know what's crazy? I'm already reading.
Right.
Did that, believe it or not.
Yeah, the fucking 80th fucking
And I'm like, don't get me wrong, this part is you learn how to like,
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I came through a map and I ran into it in the stairwell. I realized I was not asking.
I think the mask is gonna be. Pretty sure they wouldn't care if I was around like a week or
It was a good conversation, but I was like, you know, and it's hard.
And then I was like, well, they want to be a psychiatric virus.
You know, you want to give
program
something
has
like
Just too much on monthly.
So I just wanted to take her in program for that. And so,
You know,
Regina
it's
is
very
the
good.
best campus in
It's
Regina.
playing,
And so
right?
did
What
that.
does this mean?
Worked out with the outpatient lab, like, trying to like, while I was
Other duty.
and yeah, then the pandemic hit, and I was just like, no.
Yeah.
I was like, no,
Yeah.
How to
I'm not gonna
rephrase
say
it
it's
properly,
Yeah,
not to offend.
Yeah.
So I decided to.
And then I knew you got that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that meeting sound like a bit, it's crazy, he's offering communication advice. It's like
Yeah, it's pretty good.
a lot of like just further north, so they don't do much more hospitals.
They are, yeah. My professor's fine. And I think that's.
Yeah, no, it was like actually water, yeah, for sure. Right, after all, like a big,
Like you said, listen, they gave us paper passes. What's the, and I said, what's a ball?
yeah,
What's baseball?
so the only place that was, well, I went to the game store there, and like a comic book.
Boy,
Oh man, it's sick. They have like, they have like a big, they have a big table there, and there's two guys that were playing games, and then they have like a pop singer.
Because this is a similar, it's a similar action to money.
This is the compensation,
And I'm right at most amount of
and part of it is that like, he could go to one of two ways, because some people like, I was like, and it's like, oh, so you work for me.
Yeah, it can go either way.
It could go either way. It's just like,
Yeah,
you could always be like, don't be like, I don't work for you, I work for people.
Yeah.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. There was also a thrift
Well, and
shop.
that's, and I kind of, it also falls like, how was the money?
Yeah, I have a. Partnership group. So, yeah.
But I think sometimes it's like that, around.
And isolate your areas and then you go and then you come up with a call stop then.
Good morning, everyone. Joining me here today, well, first of all, welcome. Joining me here today, I have Minister McLeod, Minister of Justice, Policing and Corrections, but also our Minister of Public Safety, which is top of mind for our province and has been for a number of weeks now. Also joining me is our Minister of Health, Jeremy Cockrell, who can discuss some of the healthcare supports that are being provided across the province to evacuees, wherever they may be, as well as we start to look at having the opportunity for people to go home, for evacuees and families to go to their home and to their home community, and some of the effort that is involved to ensure that the healthcare services are available in those communities upon their arrival. I want to make a few comments about where we currently are, as it's now been 14 days since the province declared a provincial state of emergency. But I do want to start with a number of thank yous, and as I do this, I am very aware of the fact that I will erroneously leave someone out in our show from a provincial government perspective, our show of appreciation for the tremendous effort that has been put into saving communities in the wake of just what has been a vicious couple of weeks when it comes to wildfires that in some cases have virtually been unstoppable. And fortunately, we're in a little bit better situation with some weather changes today. But I do want to say thank you. First, many of the frontline firefighters within not just the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency, but municipal fire departments, many volunteers that have fire experience throughout the north that have stayed back in their communities and have fought in heroic ways to save buildings, cabins, and most importantly to save homes, and in many cases have been the front lines of saving a number of communities throughout the north. And so to all of those folks on the front lines, whether you be a provincial a firefighter from another province or another state in North America, whether you be a volunteer fire department that I know have been deployed and have been the last line of defense in defending many communities in Saskatchewan, or just a volunteer in the community, thank you. Thank you. I want to also thank a number of enforcement agencies ensuring that our communities, both in the evacuated area as well as across the province, continue to be safe communities. And thank you for your efforts, often staying back in communities that are not entirely safe, facing the very front lines as well of this these very aggressive fires that we have had. To our provincial and state counterparts that have provided us resources in our time of need. I've said in years gone by, we've been fortunate to be able to provide resources to other areas of Canada and North America. This summer it has been Saskatchewan, or the last 2 weeks it has been Saskatchewan that has been the beneficiary of those national and international water bombers, over 50 aircraft that we've had in the air, over well over 1,000 firefighters on the front lines, some of them from Nova Scotia, from British Columbia, from the territories, and as well as 3 states. Thank you to those provincial and state entities, but also thank you to the individuals that have been involved in the front lines of protecting Saskatchewan communities. To our Crown employees, as well as the contractors that have been doing work over the last number of days, often alongside the very fires that are burning, getting our power back up and on, which has been a Herculean effort, now working on connecting our northern communities to data and such. The effort does not go unnoticed. So to those Crown employees, whether it's SaskPower, SaskTel, or beyond, as well as all the contractors that work alongside those employees, replacing power poles, for instance, replacing fiber optics connections for northern communities. Thank you. And I know one day in particular was very challenging for those contractors and those Crown employees, as they were literally working right alongside a fire in communities that were still under threat. Last but certainly not least, and as I said, I know I will have forgotten a group or a number of folks, and for that I apologize in advance, and I thank you as well, as there's so many that have made an effort in providing evacuation supports, providing evacuation centers. I was at Montreal Lake a couple of days ago. They've folks, over 150 folks being housed in their community from Evacuee and Mullinosa, as well as a number of other communities. And it wasn't that many years ago, it was Montreal Lake that was evacuated, and that is very fresh in that community's mind. But I want to thank all of the leaders on the ground, whether it be mayors and councils, which often stay behind, to provide that leadership, local leadership in their community, and in many cases I think have worked alongside those volunteers, municipal fire departments and their own fire department in saving their community in places like Creighton, in places like Larange, Erange, as well as Lac Larange, and so many other, Evacuee, many other communities, Peter Ballantyne communities as well. Thank you to our First Nations chiefs. I spoke with Grand Chief Hardlot again last night. Ministers, I think, spoke with the Tri-City leadership group, Creighton, and other leaders. Thank you for providing leadership in what has most certainly been a trying time and a challenging time. So as I said, our provincial emergency was declared 14 days ago. It seems like a lifetime for many. Many that have been displaced from their community for a number of days or a week or two. And I would just say this, in light of recent weather changes, we are still battling wildfires in our north. A number of wildfires now have been started by lightning that came through with the recent precipitation that we were much grateful for. And that rain in the north and across the north helped us gain some footing again in our battle against these very, very destructive fires. Some communities are coming very close to being able to go home, and the SPSA is working with community leadership to ensure that those services and fresh water healthcare supports are in place before the official call to return to their community happens. But there's a number of communities that are gearing up to have an official return to their community, including the Tri-City area, Lac Larange, Erange, and Larange, which is about half of the evacuees that we have in the province. With respect to evacuations, there's Numerous communities across the province that will continue to be evacuated, and the Saskatchewan Health Authority is working very closely with communities and our leadership within the Saskatchewan Health Authority at a local level to ensure that priority people first were able to be evacuated on short notice, but has worked alongside community leaders in the return of those services in the advent and impending return of the broader community. I would say also with respect to the evacuations, it was a whole of government and community response. Highways officials, as well as various emergency officials, RCMP, other law enforcement agencies, the Saskatchewan Marshals were involved in ensuring that our evacuations were able to not only happen in as orderly a fashion as possible, leaving a community of like the Tri-Cities, for example, with in excess of 10,000 people that need to leave on very short notice. But then also navigating some of the challenges, for example, on the highways south of L'Orange to Prince Albert, where we had the Wildfire to contend with. First, heavy smoke coming out of L'Orange. Second, had to drive through a secondary wildfire as they found their way 2.5 hours south to Prince Albert, and then for many to find their way to another community where hotel supports and a place to stay could be provided. During that time, working alongside the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency and the Red Cross, the Canadian Red Cross Association, who are largely providing our evacuation supports, board and bed and daily supports. We provided the Canadian Red Cross Association with $15 million. I'd say that tomorrow there's a Day of Caring campaign that is happening on many, if not all, radio stations across this province and other provinces. Those dollars are being matched, one by the federal government, and this is in conjunction with the $15 million that was provided by the government of Saskatchewan. I believe the government of Manitoba is providing resources there as well, and we'd encourage everyone that the broader Saskatchewan community, if you do want to help and support wildfire evacuees, the Day of Caring tomorrow on all radio stations is a great way to do so. There has been an additional focus, I think, subsequent to the evacuation of families, and let's never forget these are families that are being displaced from their home, and it's their very home that is being threatened by these wildfires. There has been an additional focus on the recovery response and how we are able to, one, have the wildfires at bay, which the weather has helped greatly with. Two, how are we able to actually now repatriate individuals and families back to their home and back to the community where they live. As I said, myself and ministers have talked with virtually every impacted leader across the north and continue to have those conversations, often on a daily basis. Myself and a number of ministers have also spoken with a number of evacuees, again, families that are displaced from their home. And there's been challenges. Not just challenges in Saskatchewan, but the challenges for Saskatchewan families are what concern the government of Saskatchewan. And so we have worked quickly at times to try to address some of the concerns that have been raised by families that are not in their home and not in their home community. And where we have realized that there are bottlenecks in the systems that we have to support those families and to support Saskatchewan evacuees, we pushed ourselves and pushed the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency and pushed the government of Saskatchewan and proper to address those concerns in as timely a manner, and often hours, not days, to provide the supports that are necessary for Saskatchewan families. Again, realizing that it's been 14 days since the provincial public emergency was enacted. For example, it was a few days ago that we doubled the financial support package that we have provincially, made it retroactive to whatever day that family or those individuals would have evacuated, prioritized a number of cases within the system that we have, worked alongside the federal government as well to add to the type 1 and type 2 firefighters that we have. and adding some Type 3 firefighters as we move forward. That will, I think, augment the efforts that we have. And let me give a shout out to Grand Chief Brian Hardlott for pushing the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency and the government of Saskatchewan in creating partnerships and training Type 3 firefighters from northern and Indigenous communities. And one thing that is very different this particular time relative to 10 years ago, when we had a significant evacuation as well, over 17,000 evacuated from our provinces north, was we had over 400 additional Type 2 Indigenous and Northern firefighters that were available to defend the very communities where they live. And that wouldn't be available, and it wasn't available in other provinces had it not been for the initiative of PAGC Grand Chief Brian Hardlott and his team. And so thank you to Peter Beattie, Chief Beattie, Chief Hardlott, and many others. While these supports have been needed as we find our way through this very challenging time, one, addressing these voracious fires that are threatening our northern communities, but two, in supporting the families that are displaced from their home, we know that there continues to be more work for us to do as a government, and more supports that needed to be provided to each of these Saskatchewan families. And that's why today I'm announcing that we will be providing additional assistance to northern residents that are displaced by these wildfires. All evacuees, all residents, evacuated residents of an evacuated community will receive a $500 financial assistance emergency investment in their family. These funds are going to help support families not only through their evacuated time, but going to help support them as they encounter the costs of returning to their home community. How these dollars and how this will flow is through the very local leadership at the community level. This is a partnership with our community leadership, whether that be mayor and council, whether that be a First Nations chief and council in an Indigenous community. We want to partner with those communities to provide this funding assistance to Saskatchewan families that have been evacuated. It may look slightly different in each communities, but it's an investment that will be available very shortly to families through their municipal or tribal leadership, and it will be available to support them in their evacuation and also potentially in the repatriation to their community. So a partnership with communities and certainly a further necessary additional support for each and every family that has been evacuated, regardless of the time that they have been required to be evacuated. There's still a lot of moving pieces in how this administers, as again, things are happening very quickly, have happened very quickly over the last number of days. And our focus is to ensure that individuals, businesses and communities, but most importantly, families and children, have the support that they require to recover from what has been a tremendously fast-moving and challenging time. We're focused on supporting people. There will be social services and income supports as we move ahead through the next number of days, as the effort does not end with this today. We need to work with individuals and communities on additional housing supports, as we have lost many homes over the last 2 weeks. And Minister Cockrell can speak to increasing opportunity to access mental health supports as we return to our communities after a tremendously challenging and wearing time on families. Right now, the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency and the Minister and the Government of Saskatchewan as a whole is working on community readiness and infrastructure supports that we have, so that we can work alongside our local leadership and our local governments to ensure that all of the infrastructure and services are in place for people to return home. It's important for us to have local municipalities, Indigenous leaders, and all of the stakeholders in providing the communities that we know and love and live in at the table for these discussions, as not only the recovery takes place, but the opportunity for families to return home starts to take place. So we, Minister Schmaltz, Minister Minister McLeod and Minister Cockrell will be reaching out very shortly and have reached out already almost on a daily basis, but to have official discussions on how we can provide these further supports through our municipal and local leadership, our bands and councils, to provide this $500 additional support to each and every individual that has been evacuated that is 18 years or older. So Minister McLeod, first I would provide you the opportunity to speak to some of the efforts that are being made at the SPSA to do various things in supporting evacuees and families, but also supporting the opportunity for people to go home.
Thank you very much, Premier, and good morning, everyone. Just briefly, a couple of comments. I guess I would start by saying, as the Premier noted, our many fire crews who are working tirelessly across the province fighting these fires are making great progress, and we are pleased to learn that there are more communities who plan to return home in the days ahead, and we are very pleased about that, and we'll continue to watch SPSA work alongside those community leaders as they repatriate their communities to their homes. We have been communicating directly with the impacted communities, and we've heard concerns raised by the community leaders, by the chiefs, and by individual evacuees themselves. We know that the vast majority of evacuees were registered and evacuated to sites where SPSA anticipated them to go, and we are pleased that those individuals are indeed receiving the supports and services that they require. However, we do recognize that there are some situations that did not go as the SPSA anticipated, and in those instances, our government has added significant resources to address the concerns that have arisen. Over the past few days, we've added additional staff to help the SPSA clear any backlogs that they are experiencing, and we will continue to add resources until we are assured that absolutely everyone who needs support is receiving that support. Once again, we want to express our sincere thanks to the many individuals who are working around the province and around the clock to make sure that we can get these families returned safely to their homes. That includes, as the Premier mentioned, staff at Sask Power, staff at SaskTel for the great work that they're doing restoring services to these communities. But I also want to thank our fellow ministries who have really stepped up, the Ministries of Government Relations, Social Services and Health, who have just been providing critical support along the way to make sure that the supports and services that individuals who've been evacuated need are indeed available to them. The Ministry of Health and the SHA have been doing an incredible job of deploying team members to sites where evacuees are being cared for and providing on-site support for those who are seeking both physical and mental health services, as well as connections to pharmacies to refill prescriptions and make sure that evacuees get the medications that they need, and providing resources for coping with this very stressful time for those families. So I know Minister Cockrell can certainly speak to more of the specifics about some of the great work that the Ministry of Health and the SHA are doing, but we certainly want to express our sincere thanks to all of our partners across multiple ministries and across government. This really is an all-hands-on-deck situation.
Thank you, Premier. Thank you, Minister McLeod. Just off the top, I'd just like to take, similar opportunity as the Premier and Minister McLeod, just to thank the many people involved in the SHA, the Ministry of Health, as well as many healthcare partners around the province for their work. If we just go back over the last week, 2 weeks ago, moving patients out of the north, just some incredible work done by the Saskatchewan Health Authority, Saskatchewan Air Ambulance, partners like Rise Air and STARS, significant help in terms of moving patients out of the Creighton Flin Flon area as well as Stanley Mission. And then just, I would say, an incredible effort as well by the Saskatchewan Health Authority, EMS teams, as well as our partner Medivy, to move 50-some patients roughly out of the LaRange and tri-community areas. I can't thank those people enough for ensuring the safety of those patients and making sure that those patients could continue receiving the care that they were receiving. Over the last couple of weeks, as we've had people from the north of this province living in different communities, I know that the Saskatchewan Health Authority has been sending teams out to all known hotels and sites where evacuees are, to provide care, assessments, and treatments for evacuees. That happens 7 days a week. and, you know, obviously connecting anybody that needs connecting to either mental health and addictions teams or primary care teams in those communities. You know, and let me just say for a moment as well, I've seen it firsthand in my own community of North Battleford. Communities around the province in the southern half have also stepped up in a big way. I'll just quickly share in North Battleford, there were so many community donations, we actually had to stop accepting community donations of clothes and other goods to support the evacuees. So that's just one example of how I would say communities have stepped up to support those from the north who aren't in their own home currently. You know, obviously, as you know, some communities will continue to stay evacuated for a time, and as we support people going back to their community, mental health supports will continue to be made available. The government has previously made significant investments in services like rapid access counseling and in enhancing mental health services around the province. We want to make sure that those services are available to everybody who needs them, whether they're continue to be evacuated or whether they return home. As the Premier indicated, myself and other ministers have been engaging with northern leaders and understanding for some of those communities, there's some joy this week as they get to return home. We obviously need to make sure that health services are available in those communities going home. I spoke at length a couple nights ago with Chief Tammy Cook-Searson, as well as the mayors of Arange and La Ronge. We have SHA teams that arrived on the ground in La Ronge yesterday. We're assessing the health center there, currently cleaning, and we are preparing for a Thursday opening of the emergency department at the La Ronge Health Center, with mental health and addictions and long-term care to follow with reopening next week. As the Premier said, myself and other ministers and the Premier himself, of course, will continue engaging with northern leaders to make sure that people are supported and that people have access to the services that they need. Thank you.
Great. If there's any questions?
So I was speaking with some evacuees as well as some northern communities, and one of the biggest concerns that they had is that unfortunately wildfires continue to be an issue in Saskatchewan every year. So is there kind of a plan in place to maybe, especially knowing that these fires are majority man-made, is there a plan in place going forward in the coming years to prevent wildfires from getting out of hand the way they have?
Yeah, and I would say it's an active plan that is in place every year and is being built on over the years. You know, first is the Fire Smart program that we have. You know, largely up until we had this shower, which was the first rain that we've seen of any substantial amount, and we need more. But with that came a number of lightning strikes, and that was really the first significant number of fires that had started that were not caused by humans, intentionally or unintentionally. And so the Fire Smart program, I think, is a big part of that. We're seeing increased activity of people, you know, in the north and, you know, in our provincial forest areas, and it is beautiful, and I encourage people to visit it, but be very fire smart in all the activities that you do, in particular if it involves ATVs or UTVs or anything of that nature, campfires and others. Second, I spoke earlier of the effort and the partnerships and the initiative put forward by PAGC's Grand Chief Brian Hardlott, where he has often said, you know, rather than us being reliant on calling into military or things of that nature, which essentially would be Type 3 firefighters, let's train northern and Indigenous individuals to be Type 2 and Type 3 firefighters. And so that work has happened over the last number of years. As I said, we had 400 additional Type 2 firefighters that were available today and the last number of weeks. And let me say thank you to each of them, as they have been on the front lines of this battle. But 400 more than we had 10 years ago when we had evacuated in excess of 17,000 people in the province. Moving forward, you've seen in last year's budget, not this past one, the year previous, a significant investment in the hundreds of millions of dollars in the replacement and upgrading of our air tanker fleet, with 4 additional tankers purchased. One we could have used a few weeks ago, but we're receiving or have received in the last number of days. If not, it will be here any day now. A significantly larger capacity will be provided to our tanker fleet in the way of water bombing capacity or retardant capacity that we have. And so those investments are being made over the years. But I I would say that there continues to be more done. And as we find our way through this year, and what we're doing here today is providing additional supports for families that have been evacuated. And I think when you see the doubling of supports, that announcement a few days ago, the additional provisions here today, there is going to be a time very shortly. We're not going to do this in the midst of what is a critical emergency in supporting Saskatchewan families today. But there's going to be a time very shortly where we are going to have to look at both of the aspects of the work that we do in the north, and there's really two. One is addressing the wildfire activity and ensuring that we're investing in community supports on the wildfire battling side as we move forward, and I think those are being made, but we're always going to look at them after a significant event like what we had this spring. Two is on how we support our evacuees, on a policy that we had on a daily rate of funds that is provided, hotels provided. That's morphed over time away from congregate emergency shelters, for example, to tracking down and finding hotel rooms across the province, which means that rather than having a number of thousands of people in the congregate emergency shelters in Prince Albert, we're finding hotel rooms for people across the province and trying where we can to accommodate with pet-friendly rooms as people want to bring, rightfully so, their pets and such with them. But all of this creates some challenges, and I think when we got into large numbers of evacuees like we had 10 years ago, 13 to 15,000, it created some capacity challenges, and so we need to look at that so that we're ready for when this may happen again. As you said, wildfires are something that are ever present in the north, and at times like this year, unfortunately, ravage and threaten communities, and in some cases have been unstoppable. That we are ensuring that we have the largest degree of firefighting capacity that we can, partnering with Northerners and Indigenous folks that largely live in the north in training in the lead up to that and providing them with the supplies that they need, and our tanker fleet, but two, ensuring that we have proper policies in place that are supporting evacuees and families when they have to be away from their home and their home community, and just in what is the last number of years has been a tremendously inflationary environment. I think what you're seeing here today is there's additional supports that the government realizes need to be made available, and we need to have a look at what those supports look like and what that policy looks like moving forward. But the focus today and right now is to support families, Saskatchewan families, wherever they might find themselves.
Premier Moe, the ombudsman, says the province has fallen short in its response to the wildfire situation. Do you think that's true?
Well, I think I just had spoken to some of that with respect to, there's two pieces happening here. One is our response to the fires and keeping communities safe with air support from other provinces, utilizing our own tanker fleet, over 50 aircraft in the air, over 1,000 firefighters on the ground. That's the first part, is our response to fires that really in some cases are unlike anything we've seen before with the lack of rainfall we had this spring. Second is how do we support families that are being evacuated? And I would say what you see here today and what I just spoke about is we're going to have to look at what this support looks like and the policies look like moving forward, is what we've heard from not only evacuees, and both of the gentlemen sitting with me here today said that, as I have spoken to people that have been displaced from their community due to these fires, and they've told us that not only does there need to be more support, but it needs to be more prompt in being available to their family wherever they might find themselves on being removed. Second, we've heard that from community leaders as well. And there's been daily conversations with various, if not all, community leaders that have been impacted by these fires throughout the north on both those conversations, the wildfire response as well as how are we supporting families. And so what you see here is a very urgent investment by the province, but additional supports that are being provided in a partnership with community leadership, and providing the flexibility, and we've heard about the flexibility of supports that are being provided, providing the flexibility for families to utilize the funds in any way they choose to support themselves and their family.
A lot of evacuees say they haven't received any financial aid and that they're still waiting. What are you going to do to make sure that this $500 gets to them? Clearly you said it'll be available shortly, but what are you doing to make sure that those families get the help that they need?
Yeah, this is a partnership with community leaders, and so it may look a little different in each community, Creighton versus Denair Beach versus the Tri-Cities, for example. But we're going to work with the communities to have the funds in place at the community level immediately. Or as quickly as possible, and those calls will be happening in the next number of hours. And there's been some calls happening in the last number of hours and last night as to how this might look. But this is a partnership with our community leaders, our chiefs and council in First Nations communities on how those dollars, how this additional support will be provided to their community members. They know best how, they know best who, and certainly we want to work in collaboration with our local community leaders to make this happen and to make it available for families as soon as possible. So it may look a little different in each community, but we trust that the local leadership will have the process in place that is most beneficial to the families that they represent.
Is cloud seeding possible here, and is it like, did you consider cloud seeding?
Yeah, that's not a conversation I've been part of. I don't know if you have been, Minister McLeod, or not. I don't know. I listened to a program on it, I think it was, and like we didn't have rain all summer. I don't know that there was clouds to seed. So I don't know much on that topic in any way. But we just needed a rain. Needed two things. One was less human caused fires, thus likely a look at intensifying the fire smart program we have and asking people to please be careful when they're in the north, in particular in springs like this, because the consequences of a fire that's caused maybe by an ATV or by an individual, of which we had a few in that space as well. Very much the consequences are the loss of family homes, generational family homes in many cases in communities, and so the consequences are extreme. Thankfully, I don't believe that directly we've had a loss of life from these ravaging wildfires in our north. However, the consequences are very real and hit home very hard for way too many families, and so I can't comment on cloud seeding, whether that's effective. I know we didn't have enough clouds if it was effective to seed. What I can say is a thank you to all of those individuals that took part in whether it be the wildfire effort and keeping communities and homes safe, or whether it be in supporting our evacuated families across the province, wherever they might be. And in the summer, we have people from Manitoba that are in Saskatchewan, being supported by our Saskatchewan communities as well.
Are you able to talk about PDAP assistance? I mean, with the emergency declarations, that make PDAP assistance available, or can you talk about how that works?
Yeah, we're two pieces to that. Tim, you and I were part of these conversations as well. As first is with everything going on in such a short period of time and the loss of buildings and infrastructure, homes, but also cabins and bridges, and in the case of L'Orange, 2 businesses and other communities as well, lodges. The first thing is to assess the damage, and the SPSA is working on contacting and communicating through local leadership with all of those that have a loss, and it's still an active wildfire situation in many of those communities, and so the SPSA and others have to figure out exactly what is lost, and with local leadership communicate that. Then we would get into assessments of what those values are in the days ahead. And then, with emergency measures being in place, there is disaster assistance programs that are available at the community level and at the personal level as well, for some funding for your home, for instance, but also at the provincial level for bridges and things that we've lost provincial infrastructure as well. So we'll be getting into those conversations as we find our way through the next number of days and weeks. A more immediate conversation, I think, that is happening is, how do we work with a community and members, for example, in a community like Denair Beach, where this fire wasn't able to be stopped. And, you know, the loss of homes is unlike anything that I've seen in recent history. And how do we support those families on a more ongoing basis as we turn our eye to how and when we can rebuild a community like the Near Beach?
So the Red Cross just put out like a little press release saying that unfortunately some of the evacuees are being targeted for fraud scams right now. They're being asked for social insurance number, bank account information, whatever that is. Is there anything you can say to evacuees who might be getting these scam or fraud calls?
Yeah, well, first I would say to the people that are making the calls, you're the lowest form of life that is in existence here today. And I always look for, you know, the good in people that God has put breath into. And this is not it. Taking advantage of people in what is an extremely vulnerable situation where they and their family have been displaced from their home, often had to travel halfway across the province, hours and hours in the dead of night, drive through in the case of the Tri-Cities, not only, you know, smoke-infested highway where you have to look out the side window to see the ditch and the white line so that you know that you're on the highway, and then drive through an active wildfire that was allegedly set at Evacuation, only to find yourselves in another Saskatchewan community with literally, you know, 15 or 20 or half an hour to pack. For someone to take advantage of a family that is in that situation, hell hath no place hot enough for them. And so don't. Second is to our, you know, to Saskatchewan families that are evacuated, they have to be diligent because there are these folks out there, you know, that are trying to take advantage of them and their family in you know, this very, very challenging time. And so I would encourage them to be very diligent. Also, if they think they are the target of any scam or anything of this nature, to you know, contact the RCMP or a law enforcement agency immediately, so that these can be stopped.
What would have been the downside to asking for federal or military help, given, you know, for basic things like staffing phone lines, giving some relief to the very volunteer firefighters that you have all thanked here? What would have been the downside to asking for help when our resources were stretched so thin?
So I'll address the second question first. The military is not a Type 1 or Type 2 firefighter, so they can't actually provide relief to those firefighters, for example, that we've trained in partnership with the PAGC. We ran into some bottlenecks with respect to the 1855 number when the Tri-Cities were evacuated, and this would be one of the things I think in a review we'd have to have a very careful look at is how and who and what the capacity is of, for example, the phone line. But when the Tri-Cities that area was evacuated, we essentially doubled the number of evacuees that we have in the province. And for a few days there was a bottleneck on the phone lines, and that's something that needs to be corrected, and it is corrected as we speak, as other government folks from other ministries and government have weighed in and are providing that capacity as well. So as far as the federal government and federal supports go and military supports, they're part of an operation called Each and Every Morning, of which there's 3. Each and every morning, both of those entities are on an operation call, along with the SPSA, other ministries, federal departments such as the RCMP are on that call, and always weighing in on what supports they may be able to provide at what time to help in the effort, whether it be fighting fire or supporting evacuees as well. There has been a recent request of some camps for some of our firefighters in certain areas of the province. I think maybe you'd speak to that, Minister McLeod.
Sure, thank you, Premier. Yeah, again, it comes down to a situation of aligning the offer of federal assistance with the needs that the province has, and we're in constant conversation about whether or not what they're offering is something that we currently need. And as the Premier said, when we needed frontline firefighters, that's not something that the military provides. But certainly one of the things that they do provide are some logistics and base camps. And so that's one of the things that we've put out a request for as we have turned a corner and are starting to repatriate communities and go back to communities that need to be rebuilt. we have asked for federal assistance to provide some of those base camps so that we can set up camps for our workers who are going to go back and rebuild some of the structures that were lost due to these fires. We've asked for assistance with 2 of those camps, which would provide sleeping quarters, it would provide kitchens and eating quarters, bathrooms and showers for our many workers that will go back into these areas and help the communities rebuild.
I would just do a quick comparison because this might help clarify it. Indicate there's been military supports that have been provided in Manitoba. First of which are air support to evacuate a community that no longer has ground access. We haven't required that. We've been able to evacuate with ground access, which is much quicker and more efficient in every occasion. Second, there's been some firefighter resources that have been provided as Type 3 firefighters in Manitoba. The Type 3 firefighters that we have, and Type 2 as well, which Manitoba doesn't have Type 2 in any way, have been largely provided through partnerships that I spoke to earlier with, for example, the PA Grand Council and at Chief Hardlot's urging an initiative over the last number of years. In fact, throughout this, as the increase in Type 3 firefighters now will occur as we've had some more positive weather, the PA Grand Council has been working with the SPSA on a number of recertification camps or conferences that have been taking place, and the Type 3 firefighters that the SPSA intends on using as we start to engage more of them, as we've had some, the fires are a little more controllable now, are largely going to be Northern and Indigenous residents as opposed to the military. And so that's come about and maybe a little bit unique to Saskatchewan. That being said, you know, some of the frustrations with you know, what we faced and what families faced in northern communities the last couple of weeks is extremely real. We're facing fires, a number of them, that were virtually unstoppable by air and by ground. And you know, the danger that put people in was extreme. And there's some incredibly courageous and brave stories of how communities were saved out there. But the response by individuals, whether they be official firefighters or community leaders, and the response that we see in supporting evacuees is above and beyond what I think anybody could plan for. So thank you to each of them.
I just have a clarification question for evacuees who haven't been able to get a hold of the SPSA or haven't gotten a call back, haven't gotten that financial assistance yet, but are returning home soon. Should they still be calling that line to get like a retroactive or reimbursement, something like that?
Yes, so this is something that we heard about a number of days ago. About coincided with the evacuation of Lac La Ronge, and Air Ronge, which essentially doubled the number of evacuated families in the province, was access through the 855 number, access to prompt supports being provided. There has been additional resources, as I mentioned, that have been brought in to greatly increase that access. Resources brought in from across other ministries in the government. And so Minister MacLeod might have something to add to this on the specifics. But it's my understanding that every effort has been made over the last few days to not only get back to all the evacuees that have attempted to contact the SPSA through the phone number or online, but to actually ensure that the supports are available to them in the next number of hours, not days. And that effort's been going on now for a few days, and that should become current very, very quickly if it isn't already at some point today. What we're talking about here is additional support for families moving forward in conjunction and partnership with the communities to provide that additional support that we know families will need if they are continue to be evacuated in some cases, or are starting to find their way back to their community in some cases as well.
It's my understanding in 2015, financial aid of this type wasn't given out. I could be wrong, so please correct me if I am. So if that being the case, what is different this year that is a requirement where it wasn't required in 2015, where there was actually more evacuees?
Yeah, so and I spoke earlier to emergency congregate shelters. We see those to some degree being utilized by the Red Cross, less so by the SPSA. Significant sized ones in Manitoba, as there are now upwards of 20,000 folks being evacuated in Manitoba. There's been a shift away from congregate emergency shelters, largely due to conversations that we've had with Indigenous families and leaders, is that they would rather work alongside the SPSA and the Red Cross in placing families into hotels and into other supports that are there. And so in the case of where we are today is why you might be as an evacuee further away than you were in 2015. You might have been in a congregate emergency shelter. I remember one at the Carleton Gymnasium or Sask Polytech in Prince Albert then. Those Sask Polytech is just being set up now, but largely is not utilized where it was full in 2015. Those individuals now have largely utilized all the hotel capacity that we have in Prince Albert, Melfort, and Meadow Lake, and that's why you see we have families that are maybe in Saskatoon more so, Weyburn, and other communities, and then you add into that some of the uniqueness of supports that families might require. They might have some pets, and so you have to find pet-friendly rooms or pet-friendly hotels. And so how we support evacuees and families has changed in the last decade, and I've seen that at the very front lines. And so what the SPSA and the Red Cross have been doing is trying to pay for the hotels, and that's where you see some of the grocery vouchers and things come in. But then there's individuals that stay with family and friends, and they're entitled, we had brought in a policy where they would be provided with some financial supports. We doubled those financial supports a few days ago, and now this additional financial support is going to go to everybody across the board. To every individual that is a resident of a northern community, was evacuated regardless of the period of time, and is over 18 or older.
Thanks, everyone.
Just a bit of clarification, because you said on Friday that the ditch fire was human caused, and then today again you said that the fire
Allegedly.
we happened was...
That's the ditch fire.
Yeah, and you said that again today, but the RCMP did not give that information. Those dates don't line up. The RCMP charges are for fires that were set on later dates.
You might want to look at that. Yeah, no, I can check that and get back to you. But my understanding is that allegedly that fire was lit by an individual. Yeah, we can get back to you on the details of that. Regardless, I think there's two people charged with any questions around the orange.
There are 2 people charged with arson, and the police are continuing to investigate further allegations of arson across the province for intentionally set fires. Allison, just one clarification on your question as well. Any benefits that people who may find themselves not in that backlog are entitled to will be retroactive.
Okay, thank you.